Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into literally the ultimate real estate inquiry, all based on our source material, figuring out the exact price of a Martian passport. Before you go ahead and start packing your bags, I want you to ask yourself this. What if the security deposit for your next home was, well, roughly equivalent to the gross domestic product of a small island nation? Crazy, right? Today we're going to look way past the science fiction, past those cinematic visuals we're also used to seeing, and instead we're focusing strictly on the economics. Because if humanity is actually going to become a multiplanetary species, somebody has to foot the bill. So let's break down exactly what goes into that staggering calculation. Okay, before we get to the absolute sticker shock of what it actually takes to move to Mars, I want you to imagine your current moving expenses. Think about the last time you relocated right here on Earth. You bought the boxes, rented a truck, maybe hired some movers, put down a deposit. It was stressful, and it was definitely expensive. Now, I need you to scale that up logarithmically. How far would you go? How much would you truly be willing to sacrifice to leave this planet entirely? What is the actual calculated monetary value of becoming an interplanetary pioneer? To answer our source's core question, we're basically going to treat this like one massive itemized receipt. First, we'll look at the Martian dream. Second, the cost of transit. Third, building a red planet home. And finally, the ultimate price tag. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the Martian dream. So, our source material anchors entirely on this really provocative concept. It completely strips away the romance of space exploration and just zeroes in on the strict financial realities of relocation. As these excerpts from The Price of a Martian Passport suggest, we really have to look at this as an immense transaction. When you turn off the heroic music, you're just left with a ledger. And guys, that ledger is ruled by the tyranny of the rocket equation. Consider today's launch market. Just putting a single kilogram of payload into low Earth orbit can cost anywhere from $1,500 to several $1,000s. And that's just getting off the ground. Pushing that exact same kilogram all the way to Mars, that multiplies the figure exponentially. Every ounce of water, every bolt, every dehydrated meal you bring requires fuel to lift it. And here's the kicker, that fuel requires more fuel just to carry the fuel. It's wild. You absolutely have to account for staggering payload to fuel ratios to make this dream any sort of financial reality.
Which brings us to Section 2, the cost of transit.
When we compare normal terrestrial moving trucks to the completely unprecedented economics of interplanetary rocket transport, you really see this massive leap in scale. Look, when you move on Earth, you're paying for gas and labor over a few hundred miles. Moving to Mars? That means funding the engineering required to literally overcome Earth's immense gravity well. We're dealing with orbital mechanics here, where launching a single heavy-lift rocket right now runs in the tens to hundreds of millions of dollars for just one flight. And get this, you can't just move whenever your lease is up. Launch windows to Mars only open once every 26 months when the planets align. That means massive amounts of capital are just locked into years of scheduling and waiting. We aren't budgeting for convenience anymore. We are funding the bleeding edge of aerospace capability. Securing your passport actually means clearing 3 sequential, super high-stakes financial hurdles before your boots ever touch that red dust. Step 1 is pre-launch. This involves years of rigorous physical conditioning, insanely complex mission planning, and actually manufacturing the heavy-lift vehicle itself. Step 2 is transit. This is a grueling 6 to 9 months journey through deep space, and it demands relentless spending on continuous life support and heavily engineered radiation shielding. Think advanced polymers or literally thick walls of water, just to protect the crew from deadly cosmic rays and solar flares. And finally, Step 3, landing. The entry, descent, and landing sequence, which is notoriously referred to as the 7 minutes of terror, requires bleeding off over 12,000 miles per hour of velocity in a Martian atmosphere that's, get this, only 1% as dense as Earth's. Developing heat shields that can survive temperatures near 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit, plus supersonic parachutes and complex retropropulsion systems, well, it's one of the most profoundly expensive engineering challenges we've ever undertaken.
Okay, moving right along to Section 3, building a red planet home.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting because surviving the trip is actually only a fraction of the budget. Based on our source material, transit eats up a full 50% of the total relocation budget. But look at the remaining half. It's split perfectly evenly. 25% for habitat construction and 25% for life support systems. See, here on Earth, the environment provides your air, your atmospheric pressure, and your thermal regulation totally for free. But on Mars, you have to buy all of that.
The 25% dedicated to habitats means funding the deployment of these pressurized, radiation-hardened fortresses. And the other 25% for life support? That covers incredibly advanced critical technology. We're talking about funding systems similar to NASA's MOXIE, which recently proved it could chemically extract oxygen directly from the carbon dioxide-rich Martian atmosphere. It also includes highly complex, closed-loop water reclamation systems that capture and recycle every single drop of moisture. Yes, including your sweat. You aren't just buying a house, you are literally purchasing a localized, artificially sustained miniature Earth.
And that brings us to our final section, Section 4, the ultimate price tag. This entire financial apparatus all boils down to acquiring just one single Martian passport. That number 1 right there, that represents the individual pioneer. So what is the actual bottom line figure? Well, early, highly optimistic estimates from aerospace leaders like Elon Musk have suggested a long-term target of maybe between $100,000 and $500,000 per seat. That essentially positions it right around the cost of a middle-class home. Sounds doable, right? Well, actually, space agencies and aerospace economists place the true near-term cost of an initial seat in the tens to hundreds of millions of dollars. The big difference here lies between the marginal cost of a single ticket on some future, fully established transport line versus the fixed cost of amortizing the billions of dollars sunk into initial research, development, and baseline habitat deployment. It really highlights an immense barrier to entry. Make no mistake, this is a highly exclusive, phenomenally expensive ticket for one.
So, the crucial point derived directly from our source is this foundational question. It challenges us to weigh the ultimate cost of our multiplanetary future. How much would it cost to move to Mars? It's such a simple question, but it has an impossibly complex economic answer. It requires funding the creation of a completely artificial, life-sustaining ecosystem millions of miles away from literally everything humanity has ever known. It stands as the absolute ultimate real estate investment, demanding both a staggering financial outlay and the absolute zenith of human engineering and resourcefulness. Knowing the sheer scale of this interplanetary real estate budget, you really have to ask yourself, is the price of the passport actually worth it? If you were handed the itemized bill today, covering the pre-launch training, the perilous transit, the pressurized habitat, and the daily cost of artificially generated air, would you sign the check? Would you trade everything you have right here on Earth to be that number 1, to hold that single Martian passport? It's a question that moves way beyond mere economics and right into the very heart of human ambition. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll leave you to ponder that ultimate price tag.